The shuttle landed on a Tuesday morning in early September. The grass was still wet from rain, and the air smelled like something Kyleth could not name. It was thick air, heavy air, the kind of air that pressed against your skin and filled your lungs with more oxygen than any sensible creature needed. Kyleth stepped off the shuttle and felt the gravity pull hard. On Valoria, Kyleth could jump 3 times the height of a full-grown adult. Here on Earth, just standing felt like carrying another person on your back. The planet wanted to drag you down. It wanted to crush you into the dirt. There were 17 alien students in the exchange program. They came from 12 different species across the galaxy. Some of them had scales, some had feathers, some had no solid form at all. Kyleth had pale blue skin and 4 eye stalks that could see in directions humans could not imagine. Back home, Kyleth was considered athletic. Here, just breathing felt like hard work. The school was called Westbrook High. It sat in a place called Ohio, which was apparently in the middle of a country called America, which was on a continent that humans had named after an explorer who got lost. Humans had strange ways of naming things. A Galactic Union official named Dorva gathered the students together. Dorva was a round creature covered in soft brown fur, and she had been doing exchange programs for 60 years. She had seen many things. She had sent students to water worlds and ice planets and places where the gravity was so low you could float, but she had never sent students to a Category 7 death world before. "Remember your training," Dorva told them. "Humans are friendly. They mean well. They do not understand that their world is dangerous because they grew up here. To them, everything is normal. Do not panic. Do not run. If you feel afraid, find your student guide and ask for help." Kyleth looked at the school building. It was made of bricks and concrete. The windows reflected sunlight so bright it hurt to look at them. Human children were walking inside, carrying bags full of books and electronic devices. They were laughing and talking and pushing each other in ways that looked violent, but apparently were not. "Kyleth," Dorva said, "your guide is waiting." The human was standing near the front doors. He was tall by human standards, with brown hair cut short and skin that had been darkened by exposure to the sun. He wore a shirt with the word Westbrook Track printed on it, and his legs were long and muscular. When he saw Kyleth approaching, he smiled. The smile showed teeth. Kyleth had read about human teeth. They were made of calcium and enamel, hard as stone. Humans used them to tear and crush food. In ancient times, before humans invented tools, they had used those teeth to rip flesh from bones. The smile was supposed to be friendly. It was supposed to show happiness. But Kyleth could not stop looking at the teeth. "Hey there," the human said. "I'm Jake Morrison. You must be Kyleth. Welcome to Westbrook." He held out his hand. This was a human greeting called a handshake. You were supposed to grip the other person's hand and move it up and down. Kyleth had practiced this motion many times on the ship. But when Jake's hand closed around Kyleth's fingers, the pressure was shocking. It was not painful exactly, but it was strong. So strong. "Thank you," Kyleth said. The translator device in Kyleth's ear converted the words into English. "I am happy to be here." This was not entirely true. Kyleth was nervous and uncomfortable and already tired from standing in Earth's heavy gravity. But humans liked polite words, so Kyleth said them. "Cool," Jake said. "Let me show you around. First period starts in 20 minutes, but I can give you a quick tour. The cafeteria is that way, and the gym is over there, and my locker is right down this hall. You'll be sharing a locker with me, by the way. Hope that's okay?" They walked into the school. The hallway was crowded with humans. They moved fast, weaving around each other without colliding, somehow knowing where everyone else would be. Their feet hit the floor hard. Their voices were loud. Everything about them was loud. "So where are you from?" Jake asked. "I mean, I know you're from space, but like..." What's your planet called? Valoria, Kyleth said. It is a moon that orbits a gas giant in the Andara system. The gravity there is much less than here. The light is softer. We have forests that glow in the dark. That sounds awesome, Jake said. I've never left Earth. Well, I went to Florida once, but that's not really the same thing. Kyleth did not know what Florida was, but the translator offered no additional information. Perhaps it was not important. The first 3 days of school were strange but manageable. Kyleth attended classes on subjects that humans considered essential: mathematics, which was the same everywhere in the galaxy; literature, which involved reading stories about humans doing human things; and history, which was mostly about wars. Humans had fought many wars. They had fought wars over land and resources and ideas. They had fought wars over religion and politics, and sometimes just because they felt like it. The history teacher, a small woman named Mrs. Patterson, spoke about these wars as if they were interesting rather than horrifying. The human students took notes. Some of them looked bored. Kyleth could not understand how anyone could be bored by the story of creatures who had invented nuclear weapons and then decided not to destroy themselves with them. That seemed like the most exciting story in the universe. The human students were curious about Kyleth. They asked questions about Valoria and space travel and what Kyleth thought of Earth. Most of them were polite. A few of them wanted to touch Kyleth's eye stalks, which was considered very personal on Valoria, but they accepted no as an answer without getting angry. Jake was especially kind. He explained things that confused Kyleth, like why humans drank a hot brown liquid called coffee even though it made their hearts beat faster, or why they played music so loud it could damage their hearing, or why they thought it was fun to watch other humans pretend to kill each other in movies. It's not real, Jake explained. The blood is fake. Nobody actually gets hurt. But why do you enjoy watching it? Kyleth asked. Jake thought about this. I don't know. It's exciting, I guess. Gets your adrenaline going. Adrenaline was a chemical that humans produced when they were scared or angry. It made them stronger and faster and more dangerous. Humans enjoyed feeling this way. They sought out experiences that would trigger this chemical response. On Thursday morning, Kyleth looked at the class schedule and saw something new. 4th period, physical education. What is this? Kyleth asked Jake. Jake grinned, the teeth again. Gym class, he said. It's gonna be fun. Kyleth's translator struggled with the word fun. On Valoria, fun meant solving puzzles or creating art or having quiet conversations with friends. Kyleth had a feeling that human fun was something very different. The gymnasium was the largest indoor space Kyleth had ever seen. The ceiling was high and covered with bright lights that buzzed like angry insects. The floor was made of polished wood that squeaked when you walked on it. Lines of different colors had been painted on the surface, marking boundaries for games that Kyleth did not understand. Other alien exchange students were already there. Kyleth recognized Miven, a crystalline being from a planet where the atmosphere was so thick that light bent around corners. Miven was tall and beautiful, with a body that looked like it was made of living glass. Every movement created small rainbows. There was also Torax, a four-armed creature from the Brecken homeworld. Torax had an exoskeleton like an insect, hard and shiny, colored deep green. The Breckens communicated through color changes in their shell, and right now Torax was shifting through shades of orange and yellow. The translator said this meant anxiety. The smallest alien was Zulani, a furry creature about the size of a human football. Zulani looked cute and harmless, like a pet. But Zulani had 3 doctoral degrees and had helped design the faster-than-light engines that powered galactic trade ships. Intelligence, Kyleth had learned, did not always match appearance. The human students were gathered on the other side of the gym. They were wearing matching clothes made of cotton and something called polyester. The clothes were simple, short pants that ended above the knee and shirts without sleeves. The humans looked comfortable, relaxed. Some of them were bouncing on their feet like they could not wait to start. A woman walked to the center of the gym. She was older than the students, with short gray hair and muscles visible in her arms and legs. She carried a small metal object in her hand. When she put it to her lips and blew, the sound that came out made Kyleth's eye stalks fold down in pain. The whistle. Humans used these devices to get attention. The sound was sharp and high and felt like a needle going through your brain. "All right, everyone," the woman said. Her voice was loud and clear. "I'm Coach Dawson. Welcome to physical education. Today we're doing the annual fitness test, so I hope you're ready to work." Some of the human students groaned. Others looked excited. Jake, standing near the front, cracked his knuckles. The sound was like small bones breaking. "Let's start with warm-ups," Coach Dawson said. 2 laps around the gym. Let's go." The humans began to run. Kyleth had seen humans walk. Humans walked everywhere. They walked to class and walked to lunch and walked home at the end of the day. Walking seemed easy for them. Running was different. When humans ran, their bodies changed. Their legs pumped up and down like pistons in a machine. Their arms swung back and forth to maintain balance. Their feet hit the ground hard, over and over, absorbing impacts that would shatter Valorian bones. They were fast. So fast. Kyleth tried to keep up. After half a lap, Kyleth's legs were burning. After 3/4 of a lap, Kyleth's breathing was ragged and painful. The other aliens were struggling too. Miven had stopped completely, standing in the corner with rainbows flickering in distress. Torax was barely moving, all 4 arms hanging limp. Zulani had rolled into a ball. The humans finished 2 laps in less than 2 minutes. They were not even breathing hard. "Good job," Coach Dawson said. "Now let's do some jumping jacks, 50 of them. Count out loud." The humans spread their feet shoulder-width apart. Then they jumped. While in the air, they spread their legs wide and raised their arms above their heads. When they landed, they brought everything back together. Then they did it again, and again, and again. They counted as they jumped. The sound filled the gymnasium. 1, 2, 3, 4. Their voices were steady. Their breathing was controlled. They made it look easy. Kyleth tried to follow along. The first 10 jumping jacks were possible. Painful, but possible. By 20, Kyleth's hearts were pounding. Valorians had 4 hearts, and all of them were working overtime. By 30, Kyleth had to stop. Standing was hard enough. Jumping was impossible. "All right," Coach Dawson said when the humans finished. "Now we do burpees. 20 of them." A burpee, Kyleth learned, was a form of torture disguised as exercise. You started standing, then you dropped to the ground, putting your hands on the floor and kicking your legs back so your body was flat like a board. Then you did something called a push-up, lowering your chest to the ground and pushing back up. Then you jumped your feet forward and exploded upward, jumping into the air with your arms raised. Then you did it again, 19 more times. The humans moved like machines, down, up, jump, down, up, jump. Their bodies obeyed them perfectly, muscles and bones and tendons all working together in horrible harmony. Kyleth managed 3 burpees before collapsing. The wooden floor was cool against Kyleth's face. It felt good to lie there. It felt safe. Above, the bright lights buzzed and hummed. The humans kept moving. "Hey," said a voice. "You okay?" Jake was standing over Kyleth, looking concerned. His skin was slightly wet. The translator explained that this was called sweat. Humans leaked water through their skin to cool themselves down. They had evolved on hot grasslands where temperature regulation was essential for survival. "I cannot continue," Kyleth said. "That's okay," Jake said. He reached down and helped Kyleth stand. His hand was warm and damp. "Coach won't be mad. She knows you guys aren't used to Earth gravity. Just do what you can." Coach Dawson was watching the aliens with an expression that might have been sympathy. Exchange students, feel free to take breaks when you need to. This is about doing your best, not competing with everyone else. The words were kind, but they did not change what Kyleth was seeing. The humans did mountain climbers next. This exercise involved getting on the ground with your hands supporting your weight, then driving your knees forward one at a time, over and over as fast as possible. It looked like running while lying down. The humans did it for 60 seconds. Thorax tried and failed immediately. Breckens had exoskeletons. They had no internal muscles. The concept of using your own body weight as resistance made no biological sense to them. Mivan did not even attempt. Crystalline beings were fragile. One wrong movement could crack their structure. Mivan stood in the corner, flickering through colors that had no translation. Zulani had uncurled from the ball shape and was watching with wide eyes. "I am a physicist," Zulani said quietly. "I have calculated orbital trajectories and designed engines that bend space. I thought I understood energy expenditure. I was wrong." Coach Dawson blew her whistle again. "Okay, warm-ups are done. Now we start the actual test." Kyleth felt a cold sensation that might have been fear. The translator confirmed it. Fear. That was the correct word. "That was the warm-up?" Kyleth asked Jake. Jake nodded. "Yeah, just to get the blood flowing." Blood flowing. Kyleth had learned about human blood. It was red because of iron. Humans had iron in their blood. They were made of metal in a way. Metal and water and calcium and determination. "What comes next?" Kyleth asked. Jake smiled. The teeth. Always the teeth. "The fun part," he said. Coach Dawson walked to a table near the wall and picked up a clipboard. She had a serious look on her face now. The warm-ups were over. The real work was about to begin. "The fitness test has 5 parts," she announced. "Pacer test, push-ups, curl-ups, flexibility, and the mile run. We'll go through them one at a time. Everyone will be graded, but exchange students will be evaluated separately. Understood?" The humans nodded. The aliens stared. "First up is the pacer test," Coach Dawson said. "You'll run back and forth across the gym. A recorded voice will tell you when to start each lap. The voice gets faster as you go. You keep running until you can't keep up anymore. Simple." Simple. Kyleth was learning that humans used this word for things that were not simple at all. The students lined up along one wall. Jake stood next to Kyleth. He looked calm, ready. His muscles were loose and his breathing was steady. He had done this before, many times. Coach Dawson pressed a button on a small machine. A voice came out of the speakers. "The pacer test will begin in 30 seconds. Line up at the start. The running speed starts slowly but gets faster each minute. A single beep means the end of a lap. 3 beeps means the end of a level." Kyleth listened carefully. A lap meant running to the other wall and stopping. A level meant the speed was about to increase. The goal was to complete as many levels as possible. The first beep sounded. The humans began to run. They crossed the gym in seconds, touched the far wall, and waited. When the next beep came, they ran back, easy, relaxed. Some of them were laughing. Kyleth ran too. The first level was slow enough. Kyleth made it to the wall and back without too much difficulty. Level 2 was harder. Level 3 was worse. By the time the voice announced Level 4, Kyleth was falling behind. The beep sounded. Kyleth was still 5 meters from the wall. That meant elimination. Kyleth walked to the side of the gym and sat down, breathing hard. The other aliens joined soon after. Mivan made it to Level 2. Thorax made it to Level 3. Zulani managed only Level 1 before the little creature's legs gave out. The humans kept running. Level 5, Level 6, Level 7. Their feet pounded the floor in rhythm with the beeps. Some of them were starting to breathe harder now, but they did not stop. Level 8, Level 9, Level 10. At Level 10, the slower humans began to drop out. They walked to the sides of the gym with red faces and heaving chests. but they were smiling. They seemed proud of what they had done. Jake was still running. So was Katie Chen and Danny Park, and a tall girl named Megan Santos, level 11, level 12. The beeps were coming faster now. The runners had less time to cross the gym. At level 12, Katie stopped. She had reached her limit. She walked off the course with her hands on her hips, taking deep breaths. Megan stopped at level 13. Then it was just Jake and Danny racing back and forth, their legs pumping, their arms swinging, their bodies refusing to quit. Level 14. The beeps were almost constant now. The runners barely had time to touch the wall before the next beep forced them to turn around. Finally, Jake stumbled. He could not make it in time. He walked off the course, breathing hard but grinning. Danny made it to level 15 before his body gave out. Coach Dawson wrote the scores on her clipboard. "Good job, everyone. Next test is push-ups." Push-ups. Kyleth had read about this exercise. You placed your hands on the floor and held your body straight like a board. Then you lowered your chest to the ground by bending your arms. Then you pushed back up. Then you did it again. Humans could do this dozens of times. The students spread out across the gym floor. Coach Dawson demonstrated the proper form. Her body was perfectly straight. Her arms bent smoothly. She made it look effortless. "Begin," she said. The humans started pushing, down and up, down and up. Their arms moved like machines. Danny Park reached 30 push-ups without slowing down. Jake was right behind him. Even the humans who struggled managed at least 15 or 20. Kyleth tried. Valorian arms were long and thin. They were designed for reaching and grasping, not for supporting body weight. Kyleth managed to get into position, lowered down, and then could not push back up. 1 push-up. That was Kyleth's score. 1. Torax could not attempt the exercise at all. Breckens had no muscles to push with. Mivan was too fragile to risk it. Zulani managed 2 push-ups with great effort, then collapsed. The curl-ups were next. You lay on your back with your knees bent. You put your hands on your thighs. Then you lifted your upper body until your hands touched your knees. Then you lay back down. Then you did it again. This exercise worked something humans called core muscles. These were the muscles in the middle of the body that held everything together. Humans had strong cores. They needed them to walk upright on 2 legs without falling over. Jake did 47 curl-ups. Danny did 52. Even the weakest human managed at least 25. Kyleth managed 8 before the pain became too much. Valorians did not have core muscles in the same way. Their bodies were supported by a different structure, one that did not involve bending and flexing in such extreme ways. The flexibility test was different. This one measured how far you could reach, not how strong you were. Students sat on the floor with their legs straight out in front of them. A box with a ruler on top was placed against their feet. They reached forward as far as they could, pushing a marker along the ruler. The farther you reached, the higher your score. Humans were surprisingly flexible. They could bend their bodies in ways that looked painful. Megan Santos reached so far that her chest nearly touched her knees. Her fingers pushed the marker far past her toes. "Doesn't that hurt?" Kyleth asked. Megan looked up. "A little," she said. "But I've been stretching my whole life. You get used to it." Used to it. Humans got used to everything. They got used to pain and discomfort and gravity that crushed you and air that burned your lungs. They adapted. They endured. They survived. Kyleth reached forward on the flexibility test. Valorian bodies were not designed for bending. Kyleth's fingers barely reached past the toes. Coach Dawson wrote down the score without comment. She was being kind to the aliens. She did not point out how badly they were failing. But everyone could see the numbers. "Last test," Coach Dawson announced. "The mile run. Everyone outside." The mile. Kyleth had looked up this measurement. A mile was 1.6 kilometers. The students would have to run 4 laps around the track outside the school. Jake walked over to Kyleth. He was sweating again, but he still looked strong. "You okay?" he asked. Kyleth did not know how to answer that question. Okay was a relative term. Compared to the humans, Kyleth was weak and slow and completely out of place. Compared to the other aliens, Kyleth was doing about the same. "I am alive," Kyleth said finally. Jake laughed. It was a warm sound, not mocking. "That's the spirit. Come on, let's go run a mile." Kyleth followed him toward the doors, wondering if running a mile was something that could be survived. The track was a long oval of red rubber that surrounded a field of green grass. Lines had been painted on the surface to divide it into lanes. The sun was high in the sky, bright and hot, and there was no shade anywhere. Kyleth looked up at that sun and felt something like despair. The star that Earth orbited was a violent ball of nuclear fire. It sent radiation streaming through space, radiation that could damage cells and cause cancer and kill you slowly from the inside. Humans walked around under this sun every day. They played games in its light. Some of them even tried to make their skin darker by lying in it for hours. The Valorian sun was gentler. It was a smaller star, older and cooler, and the atmosphere of Valoria filtered out most of the harmful rays. Standing under Earth's sun felt like standing under a weapon. "Okay, everyone," Coach Dawson called out. 4 laps around the track. That's 1 mile. Run it as fast as you can. Your time will be recorded." The students gathered at the starting line. There were about 30 humans and 4 aliens. Kyleth stood near the back, next to Miven and Torax and Zulani. None of them looked ready for this. "I will not survive," Miven said. The crystalline being's voice was like wind chimes. "My species cannot regulate temperature efficiently. Extended exertion in direct sunlight will cause internal fractures." "Then don't run," Jake said. He had moved to stand near the aliens. "Walk it! Coach Dawson won't fail you. She just wants to see you try." Try. Such a simple word. Such an impossible request. Coach Dawson blew her whistle. The humans exploded forward. Their legs drove into the rubber track and launched them ahead like projectiles. Some of them sprinted, moving so fast they were almost a blur. Others settled into a steadier pace, saving their energy for the long distance ahead. Kyleth tried to run. For the first 100 meters, it almost felt possible. Then the gravity started to win. Then the oxygen started to burn. Then the sun started to bake. By the end of the first lap, Kyleth was walking. The humans were already on their second lap. Jake was near the front of the pack, running with long, smooth strides. His feet hit the ground in a steady rhythm. His arms pumped at his sides. He made it look easy, natural, like running was what his body was designed to do. Which, Kyleth realized, it was. Humans were pursuit predators. Kyleth had learned this in preparation for the exchange program. Long ago, before humans had cities and technology, they had hunted animals by chasing them, not with speed, but with endurance. A human could not outrun a deer or an antelope, but a human could keep running long after those animals had to stop. The human body was built for distance. It could regulate temperature through sweating. It could store energy in fat and muscle. It could push through pain and exhaustion in ways that other species could not. The other animals would run and rest, run and rest. The humans would just keep coming. Eventually, the prey would collapse from heat stroke or exhaustion. Then the humans would catch up and make the kill. This was why humans ran for fun. This was why they had races and marathons and tracks. Running was in their blood. It was part of who they were. Kyleth walked slowly around the track, watching the humans pass by again and again. They were on their 3rd lap now. Some of them were breathing hard, but none of them had stopped. Even the slowest humans were moving faster than Kyleth could walk. Miven had stopped completely. The crystalline being was standing on the grass inside the track, making sounds of distress. Cracks were forming along one arm. Coach Dawson was walking toward Miven with a concerned expression. Torax was still moving, but barely. The Brecken's 4 arms hung limp at their sides. The green exoskeleton had turned a sickly yellow color. The translator said this meant extreme fatigue. Zulani had curled into a ball again and was rolling slowly along the inside of the track. It was not a dignified way to move, but it was movement. The humans finished their 4th lap. Jake crossed the line first among the students in gym class with a time of 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Danny was close behind at 6 minutes and 28 seconds. Even the slowest human finished in under 12 minutes. Kyleth was still on the 2nd lap. Jake jogged over. He was breathing hard now, finally showing some sign of effort. Sweat ran down his face and soaked his shirt, but he was smiling. "Hey," he said, "want me to walk with you?" Kyleth stopped and looked at the human. Jake had just run 1.6 kilometers at high speed. His heart was probably beating fast. His muscles were probably burning. But he was offering to walk another 2 laps just to keep Kyleth company. "Why?" Kyleth asked. "Why what?" "Why would you do that? You have already finished." Jake shrugged. It was a gesture that meant he did not have a good reason, or that the reason was obvious. "Because you're my friend," he said, "and friends don't leave each other behind." They walked together around the track. Jake slowed his pace to match Kyleth's. He did not complain. He did not look bored. He just walked. "Can I ask you something?" Kyleth said. "Sure. How do you survive here?" Jake looked confused. "What do you mean? Earth's pretty easy." "Pretty easy. The planet with weather that could kill you. The planet with predators and parasites and diseases. The planet with earthquakes and volcanoes and hurricanes. The planet where the dominant species had invented nuclear weapons and biological warfare and had nearly destroyed itself multiple times. Pretty easy." "You do not understand," Kyleth said. "This place is a Category 7 death world. The Galactic Union classified it that way because of how dangerous it is. The gravity is crushing, the sun is radioactive, the oxygen levels are toxic to many species, and yet you live here. You thrive here. You think it is easy." Jake was quiet for a moment. They kept walking. The other students were heading back inside, but Coach Dawson was letting them take their time. "I never thought about it that way," Jake said finally. "I mean, yeah, sometimes things are hard, but that's just life, right? You deal with it. You keep going. You don't give up. You don't give up." Kyleth thought about what that meant. Valorians gave up all the time. When something was too hard, they found another way. When the environment was too harsh, they changed it. They built domes and filtered air and adjusted gravity. They shaped the world to fit themselves. Humans did the opposite. They shaped themselves to fit the world. They got stronger. They got tougher. They pushed through the pain and came out the other side. "I think I understand now," Kyleth said. "Understand what?" "Why you are the way you are. Why your species conquered a death world instead of dying on it." Jake laughed. "I wouldn't say we conquered it. We just kind of figured it out." They finished the last lap together. Kyleth's time was over 20 minutes. It was the worst score of the day by far. But Kyleth had finished. That was something. Coach Dawson wrote down the time without comment. She looked at Kyleth with something that might have been respect. "Good job," she said. "You didn't quit." Kyleth looked at Jake. At the human who had run a mile and then walked 2 more just to help a friend. "No," Kyleth said. "I learned that from the humans." The fitness test results were posted on Monday morning outside the gymnasium doors. A large sheet of paper showed everyone's scores in neat columns, numbers for the pacer test, push-ups, curl-ups, flexibility, and the mile. Most of the human students had passed easily. Some had done extremely well. Danny Park had the highest overall score. Jake was close behind him. At the bottom of the list were the alien exchange students. Their scores were marked with asterisks, and a note that read, Exchange students from non-Earth environments are graded on a modified scale based on their home planet conditions. It was a kind thing to do. Coach Dawson was trying to be fair. But Kyleth could not stop staring at the gap between the numbers. The humans had done push-ups in the dozens. Kyleth had done 1. The humans had run a mile in 6 or 7 minutes. Kyleth had taken more than 20. The difference was not small. It was enormous. It was the difference between a species that had evolved on a death world and species that had not. Kyleth found Jake at lunch. The cafeteria was loud and crowded, full of humans eating food and talking and laughing. Jake was sitting at a table near the window with Katie and Danny and Megan. They had trays piled with things that the Galactic Union would classify as barely edible. "Hey, Kyleth," Jake said, waving. "Come sit with us." Kyleth walked over and sat down. The chair was hard and uncomfortable. Everything on Earth was hard and uncomfortable. "How are you feeling?" Jake asked. "Sore from Thursday?" Sore. Kyleth's body had ached for 3 days after the fitness test. Muscles that Kyleth did not know existed had screamed in protest. Even sleeping had been difficult because every position hurt. "I am recovering," Kyleth said. "Slowly." "Yeah, that happens," Danny said. He was eating something called a hamburger, which was meat pressed into a flat circle and placed between 2 pieces of bread. "First time doing a real workout, you always feel it the next day. Gets easier, though." Gets easier. Humans believed that pain led to improvement. They deliberately put their bodies through stress so that those bodies would adapt and grow stronger. It was a brutal form of self-improvement. Katie took a bite of her apple. Kyleth watched her teeth sink into the flesh of the fruit. Apples contained seeds with trace amounts of cyanide. The poison was not enough to harm a human, but it could kill smaller species. Humans ate these fruits without even thinking about it. "So," Katie said, chewing, "what did you think of gym class?" The question was innocent, friendly, but it made every alien at the table go quiet. Meven had recovered from the ordeal. The cracks in the crystalline being's arm had healed, but there would be scars. Permanent marks left by 1 afternoon of human exercise. Thorax had returned to a healthy green color, but the Brecken had not spoken much since Thursday. The experience had changed something inside them. Zulani looked up from a plate of vegetables. The small, furry creature's eyes were wide and serious. "I have submitted a report to the Galactic Union," Zulani said. "A report?" Jake asked. "About what?" "About humans, about your physical capabilities. I have recommended that human athletes be restricted to competition only with other Death World species, for safety reasons." Jake blinked. Then he laughed. It was not a mean laugh. He genuinely found this funny. "Come on," he said. "We weren't even trying that hard. Thursday was just a basic fitness test. Nothing special." Nothing special. Kyleth thought about what Jake had just said. The humans had run and jumped and pushed their bodies to exhaustion, and they considered it nothing special. This was their normal. This was their everyday. "Jake?" Kyleth said slowly. "What do humans do when they are trying hard?" Jake and his friends exchanged looks. They seemed confused by the question, like they had never thought about it before. "Well," Jake said, "there's sports. Football, basketball, soccer, those get pretty intense. And then there's stuff like marathons and triathlons. Some people climb mountains for fun. Others swim across oceans." Swim across oceans. The translator confirmed that Kyleth had heard correctly. Humans voluntarily entered large bodies of salt water and propelled themselves through it using only their limbs, for fun, across entire oceans. "And there's the military," Danny added. "Those guys train way harder than we do. Running with heavy packs, obstacle courses, combat training. Makes gym class look like a joke." Megan nodded. "My brother joined the Marines last year. He said basic training nearly killed him, but he loved it, said it was the hardest and best thing he ever did. The hardest and best. Humans associated difficulty with value. They believed that suffering made them stronger, and the evidence suggested they were right. Kyleth looked around the cafeteria, at all the humans eating and talking and living their lives. They looked normal. They looked harmless. Soft skin, fragile bodies, short lifespans compared to many galactic species. But appearances were deceiving. These creatures had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They had built civilizations on land that flooded and shook and burned. They had looked at every obstacle and said, "This will not stop me." And it had not. "Can I ask you something else?" Kyleth said. "Sure," Jake said. "What do you do for fun? After school, I mean. When you are not studying or working." Jake shrugged. "I've got football practice this afternoon. You want to come watch?" Football. Kyleth had read about this sport. It involved humans wearing protective armor and crashing into each other at high speeds. They fought over a small brown ball, trying to carry it to opposite ends of a field. Injuries were common. Concussions, broken bones, torn muscles. Humans played this game from childhood. They called it fun. "I will watch from a safe distance," Kyleth said. Jake grinned. "Your loss. But hey, you survived gym class. That's something to be proud of." Survived. That word again. Kyleth had survived an afternoon of basic human exercise. It was not a victory, but it was not nothing either. The lunch period ended and students began to leave. Jake stood up and gathered his tray. He looked down at Kyleth with warmth in his eyes. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes," Kyleth said. "Same time tomorrow." Jake walked away, moving with the easy confidence of a creature that had never learned to be afraid. His ancestors had chased prey across grasslands until the prey collapsed. His people had survived everything their planet had thrown at them, and now they were reaching out into the galaxy, ready to face whatever came next. Kyleth watched him go and understood something important, something that would eventually spread across the stars. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced. But they were something else, something that no classification system could fully capture. They were endurance incarnate. They were persistence given flesh. They were creatures who had looked at a Category 7 death world and said, "This is home." And when they finally reached the stars, they brought that attitude with them. The Galactic Union thought it understood humans. It had files and reports and classifications. It had labeled Earth and moved on, but files and reports could not capture what Kyleth had seen in the gymnasium. The way humans pushed through pain, the way they helped each other, the way Jake had walked 2 extra laps just because a friend needed company. That was what made humans dangerous, not their technology or their weapons or their ambition. It was their refusal to give up, their absolute determination to keep going no matter what. Kyleth left the cafeteria and walked toward the next class. The gravity was still heavy, the air was still thick. Everything about Earth still felt wrong, but Kyleth was learning to endure. Maybe that was the most human lesson of all.